Hello and welcome to the third video for the typologies. We're going to be looking at cults, and this is going to be a continued explanation and a description of the different typologies of cults which we've covered in lessons. Now initially the video is going to be focused around Wallace 1984 and the three new typologies that he created for the new religious movements. So for today it's going to be focusing on that, having a clear understanding of what he means by these new religious movements and how we can possibly categorise all these new emerging movements that happened within the 60s and 70s and were difficult to fit within the typologies of church, sect and denomination. So we wanted to try find that out in a bit more detail. So, just to recap, so according to Wallace, there are three defining types of new religious movements. So we've got one which is world rejecting, two which is world affirming, and then three world accommodating. Now we're going to discuss these deeper and we're going to have a greater understanding of each of these in a second. Now the one that we're going to focus on first is world rejecting new religious movement. So this new religious movement is the most similar to a sect, as they are critical of the outside world and often seek radical change. So they will not have a relationship with the state and have vastly different opinions to this. Now, the main characteristics of new religious movements are as follows. They expect members to leave and break away from conventional lives, meaning that new religious movement becomes a total institution by which people are educated, that they are seeking that social stability from as well, whilst also members are told to be highly disciplined and to submit to the rigours of an ascetic lifestyle. Now, obviously, when we were looking at Weber, this is a key word that came up, where members are expected to practice the idea of self-denial, self-preservation, and as well as that to be frugal. So in this sense here, the ascetic lifestyle is meaning they must devote themselves to the religion rather than a personal pleasure. So they must remain focused and dedicated to the overall arching demands of the religion as such. So as a result of themselves removing themselves from the world, the members are often cut off from the family and family members and friends, and due to them being unable to understand the reasons of joining the new religious movement. So they often find it best to separate themselves because the family and friends just do not understand. This is where the new religious movement is usually considered to be brainwashing the members, because the members are now acting very differently to how they once did. So therefore, what has gone on with my loved one? It must be some form of brainwashing. Now, in this new religious movement, the group are organised and live within a commune. So a commune may be a building or a piece of land by which the institution owns, and they all live with one another, living together, creating a community by which shares the same ideologies and values. Examples of this include the People's Temple, Branch Davidians, and Children of God. And now the one that we're going to really talk about is the People's Temple. So this was set up in 1955 by Reverend Jim Jones. And this group recruited both affluent white followers and black ghetto dwellers from the Northern California. It had a radical ideology based upon a combination of religion and Marxism. So the sect was strictly controlled by the charismatic leader who claimed to be able to perform miracle medical cures. Under investigation from the US authorities, Jones moved away from the sect to the rainforest of Guyana, where members withdrew from the outside world, and then in 1978, the sect was again being investigated, and the US congressman and several journalists were killed as a result. Fearing the consequences, the members agreed to commit mass suicide, and the entire sect of 900 people died through poisoning. Most committed suicide, although some appear to have been injected. So that is the People's Temple there. Now, as we can see, it has a very extreme ideology, and obviously it's got all the main key characteristics in which Wallace is talking about. Another example here is the Fundamentalist Church of the Latter-day Saints, which obviously is led by the prophet Warren Jeffs here. And this chap here promotes the idea that he has been in contact with God, and God has given him the ideology as to how they should live their lives, and promotes the idea of a polygamous relationship and lifestyle. Warren Jeffs is obviously a very interesting angle within this, because he has really taken this all to an inch of its lives in terms of Wallace's typology here. All of the members are expected to live within terms of a commune, and they also have strict dress codes and moral behaviours in which they have to practice within lives. So, for example, in terms of living an aesthetic lifestyle, they are barred from certain types of sugar and grain, etc., meaning that they are preventing themselves from acknowledging and accepting some of life's pleasures. As well as that, the polygamous lifestyle makes them withdraw from the wider community, as well as from their friends and family, meaning that they are in a total sense of isolation here. So in terms of Wallace's definition, the Fundamentalist Church of Latter-day Saints does fit quite perfectly within this typology. Now, the world affirming, so this type of new religious movement lacks the same typical characteristics of a traditional religion. So, for example, they do not have or believe in a God. So this is very different to what we understand a religion to be. The characteristics of this new religious movement are, instead of encouraging individuals to reject the world, they state that there is something lacking spiritually, and this is preventing them from achieving success and fulfillment. So the religion will try to give people the ideology which will help them succeed. So they offer members access to supernatural or spiritual powers that will enhance their ability to live fulfilling and successful lives. So it's really an idea of self-help, helping individuals try to come and meet the best versions of themselves, which is absolutely essential and driving point within this. Now, followers are unlikely to live in a commune or give up other aspects of their lives. Simply, they follow or practice some life-affirming activities in order to make them more successful, or give them the self-belief that they can be more successful. So it differs very vastly from the world-rejecting new religious movements. Examples of this are transcendental meditation, Earnhardt seminars, training, and Scientology. Now, the transcendental meditation, or TM, is based upon the Hindu religion and was first introduced into the West in the late 1950s by the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who for a while was followed by the Beatles. It teaches a meditational technique in which followers are given an individual mantra on which they concentrate for 20 minutes twice a day, and it is claimed that this technique can provide unbounded awareness with beneficial effects for the individual and for society. Now, most followers pay for a few sessions and to learn the new techniques and then practice it at home. But there are a few committed followers who base their lives around transcendental meditation. Now, it was giving individuals the capability to be the best versions of themselves. Now, Scientology is an example of this, really. Scientology for Hubbard was primarily based around the idea of self-help book. So Dianetics is a book by which he was going to submit for medical guidelines, etc. However, it did not meet them, and it soon evolved into a self-help book by which it helps individuals to try and meet the best versions of themselves. Obviously, it is based off some science fiction-based ideology. However, it does try to give the members the best ideology to help them be the best versions of themselves and be successful. And this is very similar to the transcendental meditation there. It's allowing those individuals to learn techniques and learn practices that allow them to be greater than they are. Now, the third typology here by Wallace is the world-accommodating new religious movement. Now, these are an offshoot of existing church or denomination, and the characteristics of the new religious movements are as follows. They neither accept or reject the world, they are simply living within it. And so they are not going to be asking the members to remove themselves from their families or friends due to a vast difference in ideology. They are more concerned with religious questions and understanding rather than the worldly questions. So therefore, they can be asking themselves about the existential questions, about the meaning of life after death. And they'll be really concerning themselves with this ideology, rather than worldly questions about how to get rich, how to get more successful. Now, they believe that the mainstream religions have lost touch with traditional values, meaning that they are not promoting what was originally meant to be taught. Therefore, they want to ensure spiritual purity by practicing these traditional values and ensuring that these are the ones that are guiding and dictating their lives. Now, the examples include Sabbath and Neo-Pentecostalism. Now, this is a Christian group for the Neo-Pentecostalism, which argues that the original teachings of the Bible have been watered down, so it's losing its traditional impact here. So in particular, the importance of the Holy Spirit has been neglected by other versions of Christianity. Neo-Pentecostalists believe that the Holy Spirit can speak directly through bodies of humans. They therefore engage in this practice of speaking in tongues. When they feel possessed by the Spirit, who communicates through their mouths, although they have radical religious views, Neo-Pentecostalists are otherwise conforming members of the society. The group appeals particularly to Black African and African Caribbean populations in the UK and US, as it is giving them the ability to question the greater things as well as getting back to their spiritual roots. Now, really, Wallace tries to focus down on a middle ground of this all. So Wallace does not accept that there are some groups that do not fit into these typologies. So as an example, they may live in a commune, but they still hold down normal jobs in society. An example of this is the Healthy, Happy, Holy organisation, by which members live in a commune or ashram, but they are expected still to have conventional jobs. So other examples of the Mahar and the Divine Light Mission. Now, Beckford argues that these typologies of Wallace are hard to apply as they ignore or do not state what is important. Is it the teachings of the institution itself or the beliefs of the individual members? So in addition to this, he states that Wallace does not take into account the multitude of views that may exist within a particular institution. He only focuses really down on the main narratives that exist. So it isn't as black and white as Wallace thinks. So this is just an example here of where can you classify as new religious movements. So this is a TV program by which it was identifying a group called the Order. Now this is an interesting group because it's a group which is primarily basing the ideologies of the religion off of religious teachings such as Christianity. However, it's changing it to the ideology that everyone must practice a polygamous lifestyle. Now, they all live in a commune and they are all expected to be married off and integrated into polygamous lifestyle. So for us, we can see that obviously this is fitting into a world-rejecting new religious movement. So it's vastly different to obviously what we would expect from the other two typologies that Wallace in 1984 suggested. Now, Stark and Bainbridge here criticises all the typologies by stating that there is an overlap with many of the categories. So instead, they would rank the organisations in terms of tension with society. So those who have high tension will be obviously earlier on in the list, and those who with low tension will be later on in the list. So cults from one end and churches on the other, because they are polar opposites to each other. Now, they have created a new typology to classify smaller religious organisations, and we're going to look at that now. Now, sects are smaller religious groups which are an offshoot of an existing religion and are in a high degree of tension with the outside world due to them wanting to get back to maybe traditional values or expecting a different lifestyle. Whilst cults are a smaller religious group which are either novel or based upon religion from another society, so Buddhism. And when we talk about novel, they can be based off science fiction. And they are divided into the following three types. Audience cults. These require little commitment from the followers and can often be regarded as a form of entertainment. So astrology can be a perfect example of this. We do not use astrology as a definitive science. We use it for a form of entertainment instead. Whilst client cults, they offer services to followers and see them as customers, as they offer a way to better their lives and enhance them from an alternative lifestyle to help them achieve and be the best versions of themselves. And obviously Scientology is a really good example of this because they are seeing and helping individuals through and after financial contribution to be better versions and succeed in life. Whilst cult movements, they expect members to give up some elements of their lives. So for example, to join and live in a commune. So remove themselves and be completely segregated from mainstream society. They offer members a spiritual package which provides answers to their existential questions about life. So life after death, marriage, birth, etc. are all given and answered by this particular group. An example of this is the Heaven Gate cult. Now, this group, as a quick overview here, really encourage individuals to live off-site and live in a commune with one another because they believe that this is the best way in which to live. They did practice some particular beliefs that related to Christianity, but they believed that there would be a next version of their lives to follow. There is a documentary which is called The Heaven's Gates Cult, and it goes through quite a lot of detail, and I recommend watching that. Now, criticisms of Stark and Bainbridge. So a problem with Stark and Bainbridge's definitions is that they argue that typologies do not adequately categorise religions because boundaries are not clear-cut. But when they produce their own typology, which could be criticised for the same reason, because their typologies, even though are really useful to an extent, are not crystal clear. So, e.g., it is unclear how much involvement members have to have for an organisation to be regarded as a cult movement rather than a client cult. So there needs to be further examination and distinguishing features added to really give these typologies further clarification and to remove that ambiguity from it as well. Now, that's the end of today's video. If you have any questions, let me know.